Welcome to the Value of Recruitment podcast with me, John Brooks. Sponsored by Atlas, the recruitment platform helping you become an AI-powered recruiter. This week, my guest is Janine Owen, co-founder of The Talent Crowd, a multi-specialist agency based in Manchester. Janine previously headed up marketing teams at Reed, Hayes, and Search, so she knows more than a thing or two about presenting value to clients. In the podcast, we talk about the value Janine creates by facilitating crowds of candidates and clients. Janine shares her customer-first approach, the importance of asking why, and the value of identifying what makes each individual client excited about working with you. We also talk about how important it is to have replicable processes when you want to consistently deliver on what your clients expect from your brand. Janine is a font of knowledge when it comes to recruitment marketing, and there is so much we can learn from her about building valuable brands and services. Enjoy the show. I hope you find it valuable. Janine, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, John. Pleasure to be here.
Likewise, great to have you. Now, you've headed up the marketing teams at Reed, at Hayes, at Search. So
Indeed.
I think you know a thing or two about presenting the value of recruitment to clients.
Yeah, like to think so anyway.
But yeah, let's start with that big question. What is the value of recruitment in your eyes?
Okay, I think it's a relatively simple one. Okay, so if you're a business leader, if you're a manager of a team, you have a pain point when someone leaves or when you've got a gap or when you're growing. And the value of recruitment and doing it well, and there's a distinction if it's not done well, but the value of recruitment is to continue growth, is to fill gaps, it's to make sure that the business stays productive, that your team stays productive. I think it doesn't, and this is controversial as a recruitment agency leader potentially, but I think recruitment done well can be done internally as well as by an agency. So I don't think it's exclusive to an agency model. For sure, but I do think it's about creating a process that really works, that's an unbiased, that's a fair process, that reaches out far and wide for the best talent. And that might be over a period of time. That might not be an immediate reactive requirement when someone leaves or you are looking to grow. But it's an ongoing process of recruiting the right people to be able to grow and sustain your business in the right way.
I love that. And if you take the negative of that, if you're not doing recruitment right, your business isn't growing. It's not sustainable.
And it's not going to be sustainable long term. And if you're doing recruitment but doing it poorly, for whatever reason, or not thinking about it over a long term period as something you need to have within your radar all the time as a business leader, then it's something that will stunt you at a certain point, I think.
So now you've set up your own agency. How have you brought your marketing skills and your kind of the way you communicate that value to clients in your own agency, and what do you do differently?
Sure. So I think we set up the agency in 2021, myself and a co-founder, and we've both got tons of experience in multi-specialist agency recruitment, as you referred to previously. And I think our view on life, if you like, at that point was we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. We've been in big businesses, big recruitment businesses who've been around for an awfully long time. And there's huge value to some of those models. But I think they do struggle to change and adapt to the way that technology is now supporting recruitment, to the way that, to innovate in a really agile way. And we saw an opportunity to build a multi-specialist business because a lot of businesses that open now are niche recruiters. So we saw an opportunity for a multi-specialist recruitment business, but that was 21st century driven, both for in terms of the teams that we were building, but also for our clients and for our candidates. And I think distinctly from a marketing perspective, some of that is around the peer recommendation piece or referrals. So having worked in some of the big recruitment businesses, that's still, we'll pay you 50 quid if you recommend a friend, or we'll pay you $2,000 if you recommend a friend, depending on the market, right? But it still very much sits in that space. And we're in a world where, peer recommendation is enormous and it's huge across social media. it's huge just across life, isn't it? We all look at, right, is who's bought that particular brand of makeup or who's bought that car and who can recommend who to go to. And so I really wanted to capture that. And that's why we're called Crowd, Talent Crowd. So crowd by name and nature. So using a method that brings together a crowd of people, hopefully adds value to them and they add value to each other, and then gain the recommendations and referrals and opportunity within those groups and those crowds. So that's the way that we set up and aim to be different. And that works for both clients and candidates, John, in honesty. It's not a single message in one direction, because frequently, a client can become a candidate and a candidate can eventually become a client. So it's not about, are you a business owner or are you a worker as such? It's about which crowd could you sit in where you could gain value and you could add value to that peer group. And that's how it operates. So that's worked really well for us on a different level than we'll give you a 50 quid voucher. Not to say we don't ever give out 50 quid vouchers though.
Yeah, but we talk a lot about the old school transactional recruitment, often meaning the relationship between the client and the recruitment consultant. But actually, if you're treating that incredibly valuable relationship with your candidates, people you will place for thousands of pounds. If you're saying, "Oh, I'll give you 50 quid, I'll give you 100 quid, I'll give you 5, whatever," that's very transactional. It doesn't feel inclusive. It doesn't feel like there's meaning to it.
And it's also asking something of them, isn't it? It's that, will you recommend us? Who do you know? And I think in a world of data protection as well, sometimes that can feel a little bit jarring, where I think just, do you want to add them into this group, which is incredibly valuable to you, is a lot more, it's just easier. It feels more natural and it's more of the world that we're in now.
Yeah. We've got to give value in order to earn the right to ask for something valuable.
Totally. And it's not, and to be fair, it's not always us. It's most of the value is in the network itself. It's not necessarily generated by us, it's facilitated.
Yeah. And recruiters are in such a good position to facilitate this kind of stuff. We are brokers. We are the people between the clients, sitting above industries. We're able to connect people in ways they can't connect otherwise. We're obviously connecting candidates to clients.
And
so it's really powerful to do that.
It is. And I think just the amount of, one of the things that I don't think we do well enough yet, which I would love to do better, is use some of the data that we have. So we're good at, asking those crowds and generating activity and content within those crowds and feeding that back. But we're not necessarily brilliant yet, somewhere I'm determined to get to, at using the data we just naturally have, that we just have within conversations with consultants. And that's, as a marketer through and through, that's an age-old problem. Trying to get some of those wonderful stories out. I would love to do better with that. That's something that I think is amazing. And yet, I haven't got there yet. That's one bit of value that I think we're not fully telling some of those stories properly yet.
Yeah, I mean, I ran marketing at Reed for a little bit, and it was really difficult to do. But the stories in the network, I remember the engineering team were placing highly technical engineers into this company that was creating exoskeletons. So for people who perhaps couldn't walk, who had injuries or upper or lower body injuries, and this company was creating external skeletons to help them move again and help them achieve tasks.
Wow.
There wasn't technology to do it until they created that. It was difficult to do. I hope technology can make it easier for us, for marketers.
Some of those, they're amazing, aren't they? When you go back to, doing some basic job advert training, sometimes it amazes me when you dig under what the consultants know about that job and you just think, right, but why are you using a bullet point list of, great communication skills? That drives me nuts. When you've got all of this story and knowledge to tell about that business, and some of them are, like you just said, that's an amazing example. But you see them relatively regularly. Brilliant examples, brilliant stories, brilliant jobs. And we're not necessarily great at getting that out there.
Yeah. I mean, through these podcasts, I'm not super excited by the world of financial services. Having spoken to Mike, who did treasury recruitment, and Alex, who used to do kind of compliance and risk in financial services, actually, the detail they got into, compliance people want to see chaos. That's what excites them. They want to come in and fix big
Yeah.
problems,
Yes, it's
financial
logical,
chaos.
isn't it, when you think about it? Yeah.
Yeah, but then you what you don't want to do is put a job ad up saying, oh, you've got to sit at a desk, you've got to go to 7 meetings a day. You want to say, geez, there's some really meaty problems here.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a bit like the one with the challenging boss, isn't it? Like there's nothing really wrong with saying you might have a bit of a challenge on your hand because otherwise you're going to get the wrong person. I think that's one of the things is, you need to be able to stand up to someone. You might be having a bit of an argument on a daily basis, but you've got to be up for that. That's not always a negative.
Yeah. Just coming back to the crowd idea, because
Yeah.
I love this and I think it's really important. Talk us through that. Is it bringing people together physically and in events, or is it online? Is it blend?
It's been predominantly online. I'd love it to be more physical, but we don't do as much as I would like us to. That's a direction of travel I'm hoping we're heading in. But it's been mainly, the networking groups, webinars, those sorts of online touch points, much more than physical. We've done a couple of physical ones, but they are fewer and further between, as I say, than I would like. I think courtesy of setting up in 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got to the point now. We're all like, right, let's get back in
Let's
person.
get
And
back. But it's one
we've
of
put
the
all these structures in
genuinely
place. Yeah,
setting up a recruitment business. Having been a marketer of some big recruitment businesses over time, there's just too many things to do, John. And almost, relevant to what we're talking about. Too many ways to add value that sometimes the stuff that you think, we'll be running tons of events, we just haven't got there.
Yeah. It is a matter of priority.
Yeah.
On the crowd, I love the fact it's in the name and it's core to what you do.
Yeah.
I love it when there's just a narrative that runs through the business from the moment you hear the name. Specifically thinking about what clients value from recruiters, what specifically are your clients saying, wow, because you've facilitated, created this network, this crowd,
Yeah.
what's the top value your clients are getting from that?
I think there's probably two. One, and this is the one that as a marketer I struggle with slightly, but what we get feedback on a lot is our people. So our people are experts in what they do. They are part of that crowd, embedded in that crowd, been in that crowd for a while, and they provide a great service. So because they're knowledgeable, some of them have been in the industry, in as paralegals or lawyers, for example, in that world, or marketers in the marketing crowd, those sorts of things. Some of them have just been recruiting in that space for such a long time that there's nothing they don't know about that particular market. And that's a struggle because that's not something that's easy to market people because everybody can say it. So you've just got to take it, run with the testimonials. I think, it is something that clients are telling us is a positive. And the other element is clearly linked, but one of our values is heart. Like, we care about this stuff. My co-founder and I have got 10 and 50, 60 years between us or something in recruitment. And as I said earlier, we've seen it done well and we've seen it done badly, and we care about doing it pretty well. We put our heart and soul into it. And I think therefore so does some of our team. And it shows, we care. It's not about finding a bum for a seat. It's about finding the right person. And that comes through loud and clear in the feedback from candidates in terms of time spent with them. Candidate experience is something I was really focused on at the start. Let's not have that database that's the black hole. We've all been there. So, let's not do that. Let's make sure that we're staying in touch. And that's part of the crowds and communities. That's why it's important. Now, do I think we've been perfect? No, I'm sure we haven't. But I think we do better than some, and I think we work hard at it. And that's where we see clients come back to us time and time again. And then the other bit is around the fact that they can use us across multiple specialisms. For all I think there's a value in the niche model, we have seen, some of our biggest clients that return to us time and time again over the last 3 years are the ones that use us across crowds. So those are the ones that, will always use us exclusively and want that service that's across multiple divisions and multiple specialisms.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. As you say, I think rightly in the whole, there's been a trend towards niching down. I think
Yeah, agreed.
Smaller agencies are more agile, they're more powerful, and being able to go to a client and say, look, we know exactly what we need to do in order to get you this person.
Yeah.
But you're right, especially if you're doing something a bit different and the client then says, oh, well, that works there. Can you do it there? And you're like,
yeah.
No.
And we're Manchester based, right, John? We're not huge, but we're Manchester based. And so that's seen us recruit, maybe in Berlin, it's seen us recruit in London, it's seen us, for our clients. It's not something we're going out to get business from those areas, but it's something, therefore, we provide a great service. It's a model that works really well for them, and therefore we will replicate that elsewhere. And then the power of the crowd really kicks in, for us to be able to stretch further out.
Yeah, and there's always a blurring of boundaries. We can put in arbitrary boundaries saying, right, we don't go beyond the north of England.
Yeah.
Or we don't go beyond marketing. But when does marketing stop being digital marketing and become sales or digital? Yeah. So there's, you don't want to exclude people from a crowd, for example.
No.
Because they're an engineer who's become a marketer.
Yeah.
Just going back to those 2 points of value, and I love that you can articulate that really well. That's obviously really powerful that people need to be able to do that. What's nice is, you said it yourself, it's not easy to measure and easy to get across some of that stuff. What clearly came across is it's show, not tell, right?
Yes.
So it's not marketing saying, right, we're going to write this on the website and our clients are going to read it and believe it. It's embedded in everything you do.
Yeah.
And almost the tangible bits, the measurable bit comes in that, the feedback.
Yeah, and the repeat, right? The repeat business. You said earlier, the candidates that we place not just once for thousands of pounds, but multiple times. It's that's where you can start to measure a real impact of those people and that service.
Yeah, you're trusted, and of course, trust is so hard to get right, hard to measure. But once you've got it, you do get that feeling.
Got it.
Yeah, we've cracked it, and so much value comes from that. What are the, just thinking back over your career, I mean, you've got such a wealth of experience, and marketing is so important because marketing, my loose definition is you have to understand the market.
Yeah.
And then you have to understand the market, know what they want, and then know how to communicate products and services to them.
Yeah.
So with your experience of marketing, with all these agencies and now with your own agency, what's been the biggest surprise, or what's the most important things you would tell another recruitment owner about getting your messaging and getting your value across to clients?
Do you know what? Probably the biggest surprise to me personally is, I shouldn't say that's a big surprise, it probably doesn't sound great, but being honest, is the importance, the absolute, how vital a brilliant process is, which doesn't sound very marketing, but I think if you're going to replicate quality and service and be able to therefore market that, the absolute requirement for a quality defined process that works across crowds for me, so it has its nuances, don't get me wrong, but you need to understand that that's the talent crowd process. And people come in, with brilliant expertise from elsewhere, but we have to be able to articulate and define and coach and develop people into our process. And I think that's taken us a while. We started off with crowds doing their processes slightly differently. And then, over time you realize that's not going to work for us. What we need is a single process that, yes, has nuance, depending on your sector, depending on the level that you're recruiting at, but it's part of what we can therefore market, and what we can take to market and say is absolutely what we do and how we do what we do.
Yeah.
And that's probably been a surprise to me as a marketer, because being more operational than I've ever been in any of my other roles. That requirement, absolute need for that process has been probably the biggest surprise.
Yeah, that reminds me of what people say about the value of McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I know you are a higher brand than McDonald's. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Listen, I'll take it.
Yeah, they do all right. But you go into a McDonald's or Starbucks in their peak, you go into one of those chains anywhere in the world, and you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
You could be in. I was talking to a friend who went to Paris for the summer, and they ended up going to McDonald's because his kids were like, "Yeah, we want McDonald's," because there's safety, there's trust, there's consistency.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting.
I use the example of Pret a lot, because I think from a training of their people, wherever you, and that's fairly transactional, they turn over people relatively regularly, but you get a smile, you get a speed of service, you get a quality of service that that you expect from Pret. So I use that example a lot, actually.
Yeah, and that is valuable. And even if you then think of higher level brands, if we stick with hospitality, Gordon Ramsay's got a load of stuff. But if you go to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, he does a range of different things, but you have a level of expectation, and that it's branding, right?
Yeah.
That brand communicates a level of expectation. Now here's an interesting one. You talk about, in order to add value to your clients, you wanted to give that consistent process. So they say, I know I'm getting the talent crowd way, the talent crowd approach. You've also talked about heart and bringing in different teams and different expertise. Have you had any clashes between having people in the talent crowd team saying, "Oh yeah, this is what I bring. This is how I care. This is how I do things," and then you saying, as the operations person saying, "Hang on, we need to do this the right way to deliver on our promise to our clients"?
Yeah. Clashes is probably a bit strong. We've had some processes evolved and changed, certainly as we've grown through the 3 years. From what we were doing on day one is different to what we do now. Some of the tech's changed and things as well, obviously, but I think we've had conversations with team members, with managers, about how that process should evolve. It's not like, Debbie and I have sat down and gone, this is the process. Here you go, everyone. It's written down. That's it. It's been a fairly iterative process. It's been involving team members. How do you do it? What's the best way around it? And as I say, it still has nuance because it's needed to. If you were to try and get, a temp admin person who was going to start on Monday today to go through exactly the same process with us that a partner at a law firm was going to, that it would jar, it wouldn't work. So there's got to be a level of nuance, but there has to be certain pillars in the ground that have to happen for a candidate to be submitted to a client in whatever format. And for that client then to go through a certain process as well. I think there's a commitment on both sides, John. I think some of this is about, look, we try and make sure that we get a client call within 48 hours of the initial CV send, because we need to have that conversation. Does it fit? Has it worked? We don't send CVs without a conversation with the client face to face or on Teams through the job. So there's elements that we ask the client to commit to us as well as the candidate. to do our job well. And that's part of that marketing, that sales process of explaining this is our process and this is why, because we know this allows us to deliver really well.
Yeah, and that kind of comes back to our earlier conversation about not just asking for a transactional referral, giving
No.
value. If you say, look, we're committing to this, we're creating this value, we're willing to do this.
Yeah. So we need two
Are you
lots of
willing?
20 minutes of your time. That is our sort of minimum level that we're going to need from you.
Yeah, I really like that. And everyone is talking about AI powered recruiters. But what does that actually look like? With Atlas as your CRM, it means every interaction with your candidate is automatically captured and searchable. If they mention their salary in an email, it's instantly recorded without you having to write anything. And behind the scenes, Atlas discovers every company that a candidate has worked for, the industries those companies operate in, as well as things like company size and description. All this means you can do your job much faster and add more value to your clients. To learn more about Atlas, go to recruitwithatlas.com. As recruiters, we really need to step away from being subservient in the relationship.
Yeah.
And say, oh,
I'll do it for that. Oh, yeah, of course. And I'll drop that. And I won't ask for anything back. I think it is a service. We talk about it a lot, don't we? But, and again, we're not perfect. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like this works, perfectly 100% of the time, because we'd be, it would look very differently if it did. But I don't, it's an evolving process, and it's something that works for us well.
Yeah. Now, you and I have both run marketing teams in recruitment. Marketing is usually outnumbered 10 to 1 in a recruitment agency, if not many more than that.
Yeah.
I said earlier, marketing is about understanding clients, understanding their needs, and understanding how to talk to them. And then salespeople are ones who do really well at delivering that, building the relationships, and then winning the business. That huge balance, the balance being on the side of sales versus marketing, does that affect how recruitment agencies generally understand their clients and communicate with them, do you think?
I think so. I think because coming from a marketing background and the way that my marketing journey went, I'm built as customer first. I think it's just a natural thought process for me. But okay, have you had the conversation about why, or what is it, or even what's the one what's the word that I'm looking for? Just the words just escape my brain. But what's the one thing we could supply to them that would make them jump out of their seat? It's that sort of trying to think slightly differently and get inside the head of the client rather than let me just fill this job. Let me just find out about this job and fill this job for you. I don't think it works for every salesperson. I wouldn't. I don't think a lot of salespeople think about their clients and candidates like that, because I don't think they've necessarily always got the time to be honest. I think some of it is, I just need to get this detail. I need to get back to you with what you need. But I think that client customer need, if you can center onto that and start to think, right, how am I going to answer that need over a longer period of time? It's a bit the same as we started. If you think about recruitment as an ongoing process and you think about customer needs as an ongoing process, then the two become much more naturally aligned. But it's not an easy way to get to thinking. It's not an easy way for a recruiter to think, because they are naturally a bit more transactional. Their bonus runs monthly, their KPIs run monthly. So it's hard. But I think then when you start to look at things like NPS scores, things like returning customers, and those are some of the metrics that we ask people to talk to us about. The testimonials, we do ask everybody to get testimonial from their clients. That sort of thing is where you've got to start to measure, okay, are you building relationships? Are you building relationships and supporting clients with their needs? Or are you just filling jobs?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. And there are so many things to do that
Yeah.
we said this as marketers, as business owners, as recruiters, you can't do everything all of the
No, you
time.
can't. No.
It sounds like you've focused on getting testimonials all
Yeah.
of the time or as much as possible. And I think that's really powerful. I work with so many recruitment agencies who say, oh, yeah, no, I've got some great clients. Oh, yeah, I should ask them for a testimonial. I should ask them to help me tell my story.
Yeah, I still work with marketers who, and okay, so where are your case studies? Right, yeah, let me go and ask for some. That sort of stuff needs to be almost, it's marketing, but it's sales, isn't it? It's sales support documentation, and that's the stuff that you need to get that much better relationship between sales and marketing to understand the case study isn't for me and for the website. The case study is for you to use to go forward to say, talk to this client. This is what I did for them,
Yeah.
and those case studies to be driven as an individual. So my stats are I have a 98% fill rate, and my people have all stayed for 2 years and more. Whatever your stats are, I fill jobs on a regular basis within 2 weeks. You need to find your stats, your case studies, your clients that you're pleasing. And I think that's a message that I try and push. Does it work perfectly? No.
Yeah. Coming back to, I love the phrase of getting clients to jump out of their seats.
Yeah.
Which again, if you think of the cadence of sales versus marketing, sales, you don't, if we take the Pret example, you don't want to be like jumping out of your seat every time you buy a sandwich or a coffee. Like,
No.
all right,
No.
calm
But just
down.
occasionally, and they give you
Yeah.
your free custard tart, you're
Yeah.
going back, aren't you?
But that's also almost, yeah, whether it's a marketing person or just taking a marketing mindset for part of the time and saying, actually, okay, we want to do that kind of operational stuff, that day-to-day stuff. That's great. We want to deliver a great service. So that's the baseline. But then where do those wow moments come from? I mean, I talk about cadence. That's where you can just take a step back and say, look, this doesn't have to be every time.
Yeah.
But and if we then go to, like, if it's a case study, I actually try and ban myself from using the word case study because it makes me think of a template.
Yeah.
What did we do? What was the
What
problem?
was the problem? What was the
Oh,
solution? What did they mean? What did it mean?
oh,
Yeah.
wow. I've jumped out of my seat on that. No, I haven't.
No.
Whereas a wow factor, I mean, that thing that stuck with me from 20 years ago, exoskeletons helping people
Yeah.
pick things up or move around a room for the first time, potentially ever, or since a major accident. It's like just incredible and
Yeah.
does stick with you and does stand out. And it's almost more important to find that one wow moment
But it comes back to the
than
same thing, doesn't it? What's knowing your customer and knowing what their need is and their pain point. I think that you can't find a wow moment if you don't know that in the first place. So we've had a client meeting this week with a client that was recommended into us by another customer, and going through an MBO, reasonably sized business, but hasn't necessarily had to recruit by themselves before, and was genuinely a bit. The consultant got a real grilling because they didn't really know what they were after in terms of the recruitment service. And we've won that piece of business based on having some time to spend with them, go into their office, understanding why they're in the position they're in, why we've had the grilling, why there's a level of nervousness, and then being able to put some real certainties in place for them, some real, this is what we'll absolutely guarantee for you. Can we guarantee the end result? No, of course we can't. But there are certain levels that we can guarantee. You'll have this within a week. You will have this within 2 weeks. And creating that level of security and certainty for him, that wouldn't necessarily make anybody else jump out their seat, but for him, it certainly has done. So it's
yeah.
that requirement to understand why they're talking to you and what their pain is.
I love that example so well. Again, it's a well used phrase.
Is it? But
Yeah,
it's just real.
yeah. Again, it's a well used phrase of, "I'll find someone's pain point." Again, it gets sounds a bit boring, but yeah, that's such a good example and brings it to life of, right, what value did you bring as a recruiter? It wasn't, oh, I can fill that seat because you
No.
need someone, or I can expand your team for you. It was, you don't know what you're doing, and that is scaring you, and there is uncertainty around that, and that I'm sure is seeping out into other parts of the business, or maybe the whole business is uncertain and you're just
Yeah.
desperate to get some level of, as you say, security. And you've gone in, albeit as a recruiter, but what you're saying is, trust us.
Yeah.
Here's we know what we're doing. You can leave it with us. Here's the security. Here's guarantees on what will happen.
Yeah.
And suddenly, having that client having to juggle 17 things,
Yeah.
they now only have to juggle 15 things.
Right, exactly. And it sounds simple, and as I say, it's not particularly sexy, but it means something. And that person that has the person that's referred us knew we would do that and had the confidence to give us that reference in the first place, unbeknownst to us, which I think is also a wonderful thing. The whole element of what people are saying about you behind a closed door, means a
Yeah.
massive amount to me. So that is brilliant in the first place. But then to be able to actually, give credence to that faith that someone had in us, I think has been brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, I've heard the phrase, your brand is what other people say about you when you're
Yeah,
not
when you're not
listening.
there. Yeah.
Um, on testimonials and specifically referrals there, that's amazing that it's happening organically and unprompted. But do you have specific things you do or advice for others on how to ask more for referrals or prompt referrals, or improve your chance of getting a referral?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a difficult one. There is. I don't know if you've been. So we've had the gas, the smart meter sort of gas service recently, and they actually couldn't fit our meter, but they're obliged to say, "Will you fill in this form for me?" And is there any reason you wouldn't give me a 10? And that really made me think, is there any reason you wouldn't give me a 10? Is a question that I would love our guys to be asking. Like, is there anything more I could have done for you today? Is there anything more I could have done for you in this process? But I think some people find that harder than others. There's the reality. And I think that actually the guy that was talking to me was fine, but I've heard of other circumstances where people have found that very awkward, but they're obliged to say it. So I think it's finding for each individual, and it's easier for me in a smaller business, I hold my hands up for that. But it's finding a way that individual can find that route to, can I have a testimony? Can I have the case study? Can I ask you, if you get this survey, is there anything else I could have done? And that's the piece that I think is just, it's a bit awkward for some. And you've got to find a method of how you're going to do it. It works so much better person to person than it does via an email. And that's what we talk about in our training. It's so much easier for you to say, is there anything more I could have done? Or would you give me a quote to say, would you be happy to put your name to something to say how I've done through this process? And some people just do that so much more naturally than others. And, even Google reviews, those that, do you know what, if you don't feel confident to do anything else, just ask them to leave a review somewhere. I've got one consultant who's brilliant at doing that, and pretty much all my Google reviews are from her because that's how she feels comfortable. But yeah, we've got very few sort of individual testimonials saying this lady does this. So it's harder, that one for me, in terms of, and I think it does come down to some of the relationships that you've built and how confident you can be in that. So I don't really feel like I've answered your question there, John, but I do think it's a difficult one to put one size fits all on, in the same way that 50 quid doesn't work for everybody for a candidate referral. I don't necessarily think there's one format that works for a client. But it's about being proud of your service, and if you're proud of it, therefore asking for that feedback, and then potentially a referral coming off the back of it.
Yeah, and it's almost, again, we've got so much to do as business leaders, but it's so easy to say, oh, just give everyone 50 quid, or
Yeah.
oh, just get a Google review from everyone.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we're not committing that much thought to, well, what do we want from our clients? What are we asking of our clients?
Yeah.
So it is kind of taking that first step. If we want something from a client, we say, look, we're going to think about how this can help you, maybe what value we're adding, if you've got them in a crowd, and then saying, yeah, this works for you and it works for me, and it's the right approach for us.
Yeah, I think for the consultants, knowing that a survey goes out, the email survey goes out. So as a minimum, they will be asked, would they recommend the service to others? So for me, my approach to some of the less comfortable consultants, let's say, is why don't you say, this survey will come in, can you just tell me, is there anything I could have done better? This survey will be coming. Will you be recommending me? Will you say that you would recommend me? Because the survey is going anyway. So if nothing else, you're giving them a heads up, and we want a good return rate on those surveys. So if nothing else, you're giving them a heads up and saying, this survey's coming. I hope that you'll give me a great recommendation. That it's not too awkward. You're not asking for it there and then. You're not putting yourself in a position where they might go, well, no. But actually, human to human, it doesn't, most of the time it's been a great service. And if there's something that's been missing, wouldn't you rather know? Well, you could have just called me then. Or that candidate didn't know about that. That sort of stuff I would rather be aware of.
Yeah, and it's probably creating that culture where you've got the time and the space to be able to do that.
It's okay to go, oh, do you know what? I missed that bit. I missed that email to that candidate. So, it was done over the phone rather than confirmed by email. I don't know, but that's okay. Because do you know what? Next time you won't do it again, will you? That's all right.
Yeah. Nice. It's been so fascinating. There's so much we can talk about value from a marketing perspective. Obviously, we've talked about measuring quite hard to measure things like trust. Now, one of the ways to measure value, of course, is through price. Price is what clients are willing to pay for what they see as value. You are building a high value business, and you know the ways you're creating value for your clients. It'd be great to hear your experiences of negotiation with clients. By focusing on value, does that make negotiation easier perhaps than you've seen in other agencies, or how do you experience negotiation now?
I think you're asking in a tough year. Genuinely, recruitment's not been in the most positive space in the last 12 months, and I think that's made it harder. But I think elements around regularity of, so some of the things that we talk about are, pricing differently if it is a single, if you're just going to come to us on a regular basis, ask for, this is an example we've talked about just this week, actually, ask for a ton of, information, benchmarking, data, which we happily supply to clients, but never actually bill through us, then that's going to start to become a bit of an issue. So framing elements around, the package being, if you use us on a regular basis, then there are certainly elements that you will get, and that might be pricing, a slightly different level of pricing. It will be elements of value add, like benchmarking on a regular basis. It'll be being part of the community. But it might be that if you're not, actually ever giving us business, then your price when you do give us some business might be at a higher rate, because we are adding so much value all the time, and that's just part and parcel. We've got the opposite example as well at the moment of a client that we're working with brilliantly well, who's really open and transparent. We have a weekly call. We are, there's tons of ideas flying between us in terms of brand, their employer brand, in terms of being innovative in their space, and things that we perhaps are way above and beyond what we would normally do as a recruitment agency. but we're happy to do it because we know that they're using us month in, month out for everything that they can. And they're happy to continue using us, even though we're not necessarily hitting the level of numbers, because they know we're doing everything we can. So there's that negotiation isn't really even a negotiation in those cases. It's, it's just an ongoing conversation. Whereas with the reverse and the other client who just seems to be using us for all the value they can get and never actually paying us any money for fees, we're starting to think, right, okay, what model can we put in place there that changes that up a little bit?
Yeah, I think a couple of really nice things there. Firstly, you talked about it earlier with other things, but setting that expectation. Yeah, if you leave it till the last minute, till it comes to the negotiation on fees,
yeah,
and then they say, "Oh, why are you charging me so much?" or "Someone else is charging less." It's very different if 3 months ago you've said, "Look, if you choose to behave in this way, your fee will be higher than if you engage with us a bit better."
Yeah, that's just how we do business.
Yeah, so then it's much harder to negotiate or fight that because you say, "Look, I've explained it."
Yeah.
That it is what it is.
And the reverse is true, isn't it, John? If you always, if you do all your business at a flat rate, and you've always done all your business at a flat rate, you can't suddenly go, okay, well, for this one, I'm going to raise it to 5%. It doesn't work. You've always done all your business at this rate. So whatever I think that expectation management is absolutely key, to what you're trying to do. And having that conversation, and it comes back to the same thing of being proud of the service that you're offering. This is a service. It's not just, pinging some CVs in. It's a service. It's following that process. It's, it's having created those communities. It's all of those things. It's using your knowledge and experience crafted over an awful amount of years to deliver that service. And that's what you're paying for.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's the other thing that came out of that negotiation point, and you've done it again, is not keeping the conversation on price.
Yeah,
price is key to us. It's our revenue. It's key to clients. It's the cost they pay or the investment they make, if we're being generous. But it's not just, oh, you have to pay us 20% of salary. It's think about all these things you're getting. So making sure that conversation, whether it's a negotiation or whether it's setting expectations in advance or laying the groundwork for future negotiation, it's saying, let's think about this holistically. Let's think about all the value you're getting. What tends to happen is it's much easier to negotiate, and actually people even say, it's fun. It's a conversation. It's not a win-lose fight. Which is what everyone hates so much.
True.
Well, so much value in this. Thank you, Janine, so much for sharing all your experience. Love what you're doing with the Talent Crowd. I love the narrative that runs through it. And I hope other recruitment leaders are inspired by what you're doing. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thanks again to Janine for sharing her ideas and insights. 3 things stood out for me. First, her views on the importance of consistent process. While it's not the most sexy thing to focus on, it is the foundation of creating a highly valuable and trusted service for clients. Second, the way Janine is constantly setting expectations with clients. Whether it's asking for recommendations or negotiating higher fees, she's always transparent about what is coming and why. And third, her example of a challenging client who was actually struggling with the uncertainty of having to recruit in a new way. By identifying the client's pain, Janine was able to offer value through a guaranteed process and security in knowing the recruitment was in good hands. If you found the show valuable, please leave a review and remember to subscribe or follow the show on your podcast app. You can also get more insights and inspiration by signing up to my added value emails on Substack. You can find the link in the show notes. Now, go create some value. Thank you to Atlas for sponsoring the Value of Recruitment podcast. To learn more about how Atlas is creating an AI platform that helps recruitment agencies generate more placements with less effort, visit recruitwithatlas.com.